I've gotten these thank you notes from perfect strangers saying, because I found a new job at RedBalloon.work, my marriage is better. You've changed the trajectory of my family. Your job really has a huge impact on your whole outlook on life. I would start with something you wouldn't expect. I would encourage you not to quit your job, but to stand up for what you believe in your company. Any business that focuses on something other than their business is really going to struggle. In 1 year alone, the state of New York lost $19.8 billion of annual taxable income.
Many of you tell me, Julian, I want to work in a work-free office. Julian, I want to work in a company that is aligned with my values. Julian, I don't want to allocate my skill to an employer who does not value me. Today, I want to introduce you to someone. This person may have a solution to your problem. His name is Andrew Capuchettes. Andrew started RedBalloon.work. Andrew, it's a pleasure to welcome you to Peoplelyzer.
Thank you for having me, Julian. It's nice to be here. Nice to talk to you.
Andrew, first things first, let's bring a little bit of context and a bit of education. What is woke?
Yeah, woke. And there's a lot of debate over that word and how do you define it. And there are some really good definitions out there. What I think the heart of the woke word is, it describes a worldview in which everyone is put into a category. They're put into the category of a victim or a victimizer, of oppressed or an oppressor, of someone who is, it's basically the Marxist construct of the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, and saying that everything is a two-tier society, and we should basically be angry with or fighting with people who are not in our category. And I don't think that is the way that we should be thinking about the world. And when it comes to the workplace, it is really bad for business, because instead of actually innovating and pushing back and having an opportunity to debate topics, you spend all your time being offended or figuring out what category you're in, trying to get to different categories, trying to be offended by different people. And it really slows down the innovation that is required for business to be successful.
So excellent, right? You're talking about office. So as an employee who would be in a work organization, how do I know I'm in a work organization? What do I see that tell me, oh shit, I am in a work organization? Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, it's a good question. A lot of historian is probably a strong word, but people look at where did this woke ideology make it into the workplace? Because we've seen it in the universities for quite some time, where you have this kind of, again, Marxist mindset and ideology in the universities. But in the corporation, it wasn't there for a very long time because it's not actually good for business. And good business people realize that. But as you got into 2008, you saw this interesting shift in corporate culture. And a lot of it came around the old Occupy Wall Street movement. If you remember that, Occupy Wall Street, this whole movement, right? Big banks are bad. And I think what happened is a lot of these big banks and big corporations said, okay, we want to not be the bad guy because it's bad for business. And so how are we going to be in a position where the Twitter mob doesn't go after us, or the Facebook mob doesn't go after us? And so they said, all right, who can we make happy? And who has the biggest microphone in our society? And the people with the biggest microphone in our society is the mainstream liberal media. And so they thought, okay, if we say the things that will make the mainstream liberal media happy, whether it's about environmentalism or racism or any of the other isms, then the liberal media will say we're amazing, and then we can go and do whatever we want, and we won't have to deal with all of this. So if you're a Nike and you decry the sins of slavery, while effectively using slave labor to make tennis shoes, as long as you're saying the right things, then it's going to have a dramatic impact on how the media perceives you and how the American people perceive you. Well, the problem is when you start to talk like this all the time, and you start to hire young people out of the university system to run the HR department, lo and behold, you start to have a corporation that believes it down in their bones that they should be donating money, like Silicon Valley Bank. They should be giving money to BLM while they're in the process of going bankrupt, because they're virtue signal. They're trying to appease the woke gods. And so when you do this, it's really, really bad for business. So that's what where it kind of came from. And if you're in a business today, obviously there's every little level of wokeness all over the place, because there's some companies that are generally conservative. They've got a couple DEI policies. They try and, appease the ESG folks, but for the most part, they're actually just focused on their job. You're lucky if you're in a business like that. There are other businesses. I had someone write me, and they said they were an executive at Microsoft, and Microsoft, they had a big team meeting, and she was presenting, and she had an American flag for her background, like I do. And she was called by HR the next day and said, so that American flag was triggering for some of our employees because it's a sign of white supremacy in America. And she's like, no, I'm actually an American, and I am should feel comfortable, should feel great about that. The next day, a different coworker had a picture of a black man being lynched, which is horrifying. It's horrific. And the caption said, "A good man died at your hands today," right out of the CRT playbook. Basically, everyone's responsible for everything bad of the people in their category, right? Back to this woke ideology. It categorizes everyone. And not only was that tolerated, that was celebrated at Microsoft. So when you see those kind of things happening, you need to understand that it is affecting your worldview. It's affecting your outlook on life. That kind of woke ideology is going to have a deep impact on how you view the world. And it's probably time to look for a new job.
Yeah. So those are a good example. Is exactly what I was looking for in terms of, as an employee in a work organization, what is it that I experience? What is it that I see? And exactly as you said, you're basically working on eggs, right? You need to pay attention to everything you're doing, a presentation, a speech, whatever. Meaning that, yeah, it's a new dimension to take care of instead of just doing the work, the business, right?
That's right. In fact, I talked to a Silicon Valley Bank employee after the bank imploded, and they said they were going through weekly microaggression trainings. And this whole, again, woke mindset was this, okay, we're going to do microaggression trainings telling you what you're not allowed to say and what you're not allowed to do. And he said, people saw the credit risk, and they knew the bank was going into bankruptcy and was going to go out. But they knew that if they went and talked to people in the credit department, it would be seen as a microaggression, and therefore it was just not going to be accepted. And so anyway, that's kind of an example. Business is hard enough by itself, but if you also have to try and figure out whatever the political zeitgeist of the day is and kowtow to that, it's just going to make your job that much harder. And any business that focuses on something other than their business is really going to struggle. So
it sounds like all these trainings are a big signal that you can see inside those woke companies, right? Every time you see DEI, CIY, ESG trainings, basically, that every employee needs to go through. Yeah, you need to be aware of what they're doing. The DEI training is really designed to be a liturgy that's going to try and affect the way that you think about the world. And it's a big business, right? You always follow the money. Last year in America, $8 billion was spent on DEI consultants for those trainings. That doesn't include the lost opportunity cost of the employees or the demoralization of the employees when they're told that they're evil no matter what they do because of what their skin color is and who their parents are. So $8 billion was spent by corporations on something that had nothing to do about productivity or innovation or sound business practices at all. All right. So let's imagine I'm an employee in a work organization and I want to go toward an office where work doesn't exist. It's not visible, right? How do you help me to go toward this outcome?
Yeah. Well, I would start with something you wouldn't expect. I would encourage you not to quit your job, but to stand up for what you believe in your company. It is actually better for you, and I have labor lawyers on staff here at RedBalloon.work. It's better for you to be removed from the company for living your values out loud than for you to just quietly walk off into the sunset and quit. And you don't have to be shrill. You don't have to be combative like many of the people on the left have been about their worldview. You can just say, I would like a religious exemption. I would like to not go to that DEI training, or I'd like to not go to the ESG training. Thank you very much. I would like to hire people in my department based on meritocracy, based on the value they can bring to the company, not on the color of their skin. And when you start to do those kind of things where you're just, we all know what those things are, where they're just 10 years ago normal, and now they're going to cause a lot of tension and anxiety. But when you stand up for those things, one of two things is going to happen. The first one, and actually the most likely, is you're going to find that the vast majority of the employees at your company agree with you. And it's only a few people that are pushing this woke agenda on the corporation. And you're going to start to turn things around. And it's going to take a lot of courage, but nobody likes to be the first one. But if you are the first one, you are going to give courage to all your other coworkers, because they're going to realize, oh, yes, other people agree with me. And so it's a lot easier for them to live their values out loud and just be normal, back to what, again, used to be normal not that long ago. So that would be my first course of action. And the downside of that is you might lose your job in the process. And so you should have a backup plan. You should be looking for other opportunities. But if you were removed because you asked for a religious exemption to not go to a DEI training, you have a very strong legal position, and the company knows that. The HR department knows that, and they're going to offer you probably a very attractive package to leave the company, which is way better than what you would have gotten if you had just walked off and quit on your own. So that would be my first encouragement is go ahead and live your values out loud and see how it works out. Often it works out that you're going to start to impact the culture of your business. And if that doesn't happen, you're going to find yourself in a good spot as you exit the company. If you do exit the company, or if you need to leave because those plans are just not possible at the current company that you're at, obviously RedBalloon.work is America's woke-free job board and labor marketplace. And we are now serving thousands of businesses that have signed a pledge that said that they believe the U.S. Constitution matters, and that they are going to protect the freedom of their current and future employees. And so finding employers like that, like the ones on RedBalloon, is a deep blessing to any employee. And so I would encourage you to go there.
Okay, so as a job seeker, I can find jobs within the US and within Canada, right? Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. We have a lot of jobs in the US. We have some jobs in Canada. Okay. And yes, it's all free for you. You can fill out your profile. We do have quite a few international people who have put on their profile because there are US companies that are looking to either hire remotely or hire and do an H-1B visa. So I would encourage you that there are opportunities. We hope to be international at some point. But if anybody out there thinks, man, I would love to start a RedBalloon franchise in whatever country I'm in, I would be open to that conversation, because I do think that freedom is needed everywhere. And freedom in the labor market is really important. You think about when you meet someone new, you ask them, what do you do? And you're asking them what their job is. But it betrays that a job is more than just a 9-to-5 hobby. It's it's your vocation. It's a defining feature of who you are. And if someone can be free at work, they're going to be able to be free at home. And I've gotten these thank you notes from perfect strangers saying, because I found a new job at RedBalloon.work, my marriage is better. You've changed the trajectory of my family. Your job really has a huge impact on your whole outlook on life. So it's really important. And if you want to stand for freedom in your country, reach out, and I'm happy to have that conversation.
Right. Yeah. And there's a demand in multiple countries. Now, as a job seeker, so I can browse companies, non-work companies on your website, redballoon.work. I can also create a CV, upload a CV. Right?
That's right. Yep. It's all free for job seekers. And you can join that database. And there's a number of different resources. There's an employee bill of rights. And it's Employee Bill of Rights and Responsibilities. That's a free resource for you to download at redballoon.work. And it's actually really helpful. It was put together by a Harvard Law labor lawyer, and she was at Harvard, and then she was a labor lawyer in California, which is a more liberal state. And so you have a really great document that can help you think about what your legal standing is in the workplace. And so there's a bunch of resources there. There's blog, et cetera. But yes, you can fill out your profile, and all of it's free for job seekers.
Okay. And even if I am not inside the US or Canada, I can upload my CV, right? Basically waiting that your balloon land in my country at some point. I will be already there, and potentially companies can find me, right? So that's
correct.
Might be a strategy, right? Okay, cool. Let's imagine I find a job through RedBalloon.work and I'm starting in my job. How do I feel as an employee in a non-work company?
Yeah, I mean, the hope would be you can just focus on your job, not having to figure out what are all the external factors that are going to make you. You don't have to walk in those eggshells. You don't have to worry about who's offended constantly. You can just focus on bringing value to your employer, showing up every day, supporting your family. It is really amazing and it is really fun. And I've worked for a lot of companies over the years, and I get notes from people who've worked for companies all over the place. And the reality is when you have the opportunity to just show up and do your job, work is actually fun. Work is not fun when you have to spend all your time trying to gauge the political environment that you're living in. But when you can just show up and do your job, it's actually a real deep blessing. And my encouragement to you is don't bring some of those ideas that made your last job so painful into your new job. This is a temptation for a lot of people. You see people moving from, I'll say, California to a Texas here in the US, where it's like, oh, okay, well, clearly they are getting away from the policies, the taxes, the regulation that they had in California, but don't then vote for all of those policies, taxes, and regulations in the new state where you're moving because you don't like the results. You don't like the byproduct of those policies in that happened before. So don't bring it there. So it's the same thing with a company. When you move somewhere, you need to work hard to not be offended. So don't just celebrate that no one's getting offended around you and you don't have to walk on eggshells. Well, make sure you're not that employee because you're going to have kind of muscle memory. You're going to have a way of thinking that is from your old woke company that you need to get rid of, or else you're going to be an employee that's not pleasant for anybody else to be around. So I guess that's my encouragement is you need to be a little more self-aware when you make this transition and make sure that you're not the one who everyone is wishing wasn't there.
Right. So all in all, you feel more comfortable in a work-free environment. And I guess it plays also on the health of your mind and the health of your body, right? To some extent, right? So I'm assuming that those people may perform in a better manner at work, maybe less sick, more stable. There's really a lot of benefits, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
As an employer looking for work-free folks, basically, what do I gain from it, from an employer perspective?
You know, we had one employer say that every person that they hire off RedBalloon.work is cleansing to their culture. They're just hardworking conservatives who want to show up, do their job, not cause a big fuss, not cause lots of heartache all the time, bring innovation, bless customers, and just drive value. And that is a dream for any employer where they don't have to worry about being sued all the time. They just have to worry about how do we deeply bless our customers? How do we bring value to our customers? And so employer after employer has said, this is one of the most critical things for us to be able to build our business. You need people who are and look, we don't mind diversity, but we do like-mindedness. So you want diversity of thoughts and ideas, but you don't want someone who hates capitalism in your company because that's going to never turn out very well. And we did here at RedBalloon.work, and you can find this on our blog, we did a research project on the cost of a bad hire. How much does it cost an employer to hire someone who is not a good cultural fit, who is going to push back against what the employer is trying to accomplish? Well, the reality is that cost is a lot higher than a lot of people think. Depending on the job, we were calculating costs over $15,000 for a bad hire within a company. And those costs come from the fact that upwards of one study showed that 17% of the boss's work is to redo the work of a bad hire, right? So that's nearly 1 day a week that you're spending redoing the work of that person. You hurt customer relationships when you have a bad hire, when you have someone who's focused not on doing their job, but instead focused on, again, political correctness or wokeness or whatever it is. Those people are not going to provide great value to their customers, and their customers are going to have a bad experience, and then they're going to walk away sad. So that's going to hurt your customers. It's going to hurt other employees who are spending all their time walking on eggshells, being worried about if they're going to offend this person rather than just doing their job. And so when you start to add up all of these costs, $15,000 was kind of on the low end for the cost of a bad hire. I talked to one company in Texas who they hired a head of customer service, and that person nearly killed their business because of they were pushing a worldview. They were giving bad customer service. They were hiring like-minded woke people in their department, and it nearly killed the business. And so it is critical that you find like-minded, values-aligned people to work in your business, particularly as a small business, when you don't have the buffer to deal with some of those things. So for a corporation, the payoff is significant to not get bad hires within your four walls.
Okay. So let's try to zoom out. I know that you like macroeconomics and you look at all those big indicators. So what are what is the economic of work versus non-work, basically, right? Tell us what happened from an economic perspective.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. If you look at the biggest places where you can see the difference and actually quantify the difference would be in states. So if you look at a state like Florida or New York, those are clear examples of conservative policies or liberal policies that are being handed down by the legislation by everyone in the state, because they're voting in governors and legislators that want those liberal and woke policies. So in 1 year alone, the state of New York lost $19.8 billion of annual taxable income. These are people that are leaving the state permanently, and they are taking their income to other states, and obviously they're taking that tax revenue to other states. Whereas Florida in the same year got $23 billion of annual taxable income. You know, one of the more famous ones is when you saw the CEO of Citadel, who arguably was making upwards of $500 million a year, move from Chicago down to Florida because he said his executives were getting mugged and knifed in downtown Chicago because of the policies of the left. And he took all of that tax revenue of his company down there. The average income of the people moving into the state of New York is $30,000 a year less than the average income of the people leaving the state of New York. So you have people coming who are looking to be a little bit more on the dole. And then you have people who have made money leaving the state because they don't want to pay for everyone else to live anymore. So those are examples. If you look at the job market, the recovery from COVID in the job market happened very, very rapidly within a year from in the red states. And it still has not totally happened in the blue states. You still don't have the same level of jobs and productive people in the blue economies as you do in the red economies. And this is turning out in state budgets. Florida has a surplus in their state budget, and New York literally has a significant deficit, and they are cutting city services all over the place because they can't afford to live anymore because all the productive members of their society are leaving. And look, we know that people are your most important asset if you're a business, but that's also the true if it's a state or a region, because the people who are doing productive things, who are productive members of society, are driving your GDP and your tax revenue for a political geography like a state. And so that is just a clear example where we don't have to debate which policy was better because we have a scorecard. Which states are thriving in the job market, in the tax revenue, and in the total gross product output.
So basically, the market is voting for non-work simply, right? If you leave it naturally, it goes toward non-work, right? So which is a big indicator of what you should be doing in the first place. So we are entering 2024 pretty soon. As a job seeker, what do I need to know?
Yeah, I would imagine. So right now, so the JOLTS report came out this morning, and that's a job and labor turnover report. It comes out of the BLS. And it's basically how much demand is in the economy. It's not how many jobs are there, but how many open jobs are in the economy. Okay. And this is the October report that came out this morning, and it is down over 600,000 from the previous month. And I think usually you're going to see in October and November an acceleration of open jobs because employers are looking to staff up for the Christmas season. But we saw a pretty dramatic decrease. We have had a tight labor market for a long time. The job seeker has really been in the driver's seat. But with the interest rates in the U.S. right now, the economy really is slowing down. And I would say Biden economics is not working. And American people are feeling it. It's hard to pay your bills. Wages did not keep up with inflation. And the labor market has been tight historically for a long time, but I think it's going to start to loosen up because employers are nervous. We do a Freedom Economy Index survey every month. It's a joint project of RedBalloon and Public Square. We actually survey over 70,000 small businesses in this freedom economy. These are all non-woke businesses. And we've asked them things like, what do you think about politics, the economy, their business, et cetera? And a consistent trend over the last couple of months is we're nervous about the economy. We're nervous about the policies coming out of DC and out of the Federal Reserve. And so we are putting our hiring needs on hold. And so I think as job seekers, you're going to need to be less picky about a job for the next at least 6 months. And then I would expect that things will start to change because as we go into a political season, the Federal Reserve is a political entity, and they're going to want the economy to be hopping for the election season. So I would imagine that you're going to start to see interest rates come down, call it in late winter, early spring, through the summer, with an effort to try and juice the economy so that the administration can say that they did all these great things. So that's kind of my prediction. But as a job seeker right now, I would encourage you, hold on to the job you have, or don't be as picky about your job you're looking for. But there are still great companies out there looking for good people.
Okay, so as a job seeker, don't be too picky. If you stay in the company, adopt the strategy number one that you mentioned of speaking up, right? Try to see what you can do inside the company. And then if you really need to leave and you're leaving or you're fired, try to go to redballoon.work and don't be too picky. Now, how do I avoid to work for a work company, right? Because I may not know all those work company, right? I know that you have the work-o-meter, right? But it's not it's not available for all the companies. So how do I avoid to fall into a work company?
Yeah. So you can actually, so this is something that I see a lot of job seekers not do, is when they go into the interview process, they're answering all the questions that are coming at them, which is a good thing, because you're interviewing for a job, but you also have the opportunity to ask a lot of questions about the company, of the HR department, of your manager. And I think it actually is a really good thing. So when I was running a company with 400 or 500 employees, I would actually tell people, I would just do a full disclosure about who I was as they were coming in the interview process. I'd say, everyone is welcome here. We are a great environment for everyone. I happen to be an unapologetic conservative Christian, and I'm going to run the company like that. It's not a prerequisite. It's not a weird thing, but I thought you should know. And as you are going into a company, you should have a full disclosure about who you are and not be afraid of that, because it's going to put you in a very strong legal standing. It's kind of like the contents of this cup might be hot. You see that on McDonald's coffee cups. And then if you burn yourself, it's like, well, we told you it was hot. And so if you're an employee, you have the opportunity to ask questions about the employer. How do they think about raises and opportunities to grow? Is it based on skin color? Is it based on political ideology? Or is it based on the merit that you bring to that company? How much time are we going to spend on DEI and ESG training? So you can ask those kind of questions coming into a company and really find out a lot. And don't be afraid of that. It's not going to cost you the opportunity. And if it does cost you the opportunity, you probably didn't want the job anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good way to filter out what you don't want, because otherwise, if you sign and then spend time there 2, 3, 4 months, and then you realize, oh shit, I lost my time. Actually, it's a game over.
That's right.
Go back to the square one. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else for the audience, Andrew? Any other message that you feel like passing?
Yeah, I would just encourage people. We have a kind of a crazy world we all live in right now. You see what's happening in Ukraine or in Israel or in China or Russia or in Washington, D.C. or South America. And if you watch the news, it can be overwhelming. And you get to this moment where you're like, man, there's nothing I can do, because you feel like I'm powerless. I'm just one person and there's nothing I can do. And the problem is, if everybody thinks that, the answer is yes, there is nothing you can do. But if you spend all your time just wringing your hands, sitting on the couch, watching the news, you're not affecting anything. You're really being affected yourself. You're having your worldview changed. And so my encouragement to people is, don't just sit around and worry. Go and do something. Go start a podcast. Go buy from a local conservative business rather than going to Target. Share this news station, share this podcast with somebody who you think it'd be helpful for. Go to redballoon.org and support that. Go to a public square and support them. If every conservative in America and if every conservative in the world does one thing differently to support people in who kind of share their worldview every day, that will have a dramatic impact on the world. And so my encouragement is have an impact on one, change one person or one business the way that you wish you could change everybody. And so that's my encouragement to people, is focus on doing the right thing in your world. And if you do that, and everybody does that, it will have a huge impact on everyone else. So that's my encouragement. And obviously, redballoon.work, you can go and check us out there. And if you go to @redballoonwork on any of the social media channels, you can follow us on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or whatever. And we'd love to have you kind of join the movement and be part of what we're doing.
Excellent. I have nothing to add. It's perfect. Thank you for your time, Andrew. I know you are giving some of your time for this interview. It's really nice of you. And I wish you all the best, creating something that really will go even higher than platform like LinkedIn and all these platforms, definitely, because you deserve it. You deserve to create something great for the people, definitely.
Well, thank you. We'll have a great day, and thanks for having me.
Thank you. Cheers.